Cracked paint peeled from the shutters of the house at 14 Aldermore Lane like dead skin, and the lawn had gone to seed sometime around the second spring after Edgar Pruitt, 63, stopped caring what the neighbors thought. He moved through the tall grass each morning the same way, head low, shoulders folded inward, the sleeves of his gray flannel shirt rolled to the elbow, even in October. The porch swing behind him groaned against its rusted chain. Nobody waved. He did not look up to check. 3 days ago, someone had taken the Kellerman's pruning shears off the cedar fence post next door. Orange handles, $40 pair, and the handwritten reward sign on their mailbox had been there ever since. Every evening at 6, Edgar settled into the porch swing with the Conyers Courier folded to the crossword he never finished. He watched the street the way a man watches a river, not expecting anything, just tracking the current. Families walked dogs past the gap in his fence without slowing. A woman in a yellow rain slicker crossed to the other sidewalk when she saw him. Edgar folded the newspaper along its original crease, set it on the rail, and went inside before the streetlights came on. The first theft happened on a Wednesday in early November. Edgar noticed it the way he noticed most things, sideways, without meaning to. The hook on the cedar fence post between his yard and the Kellermans had held the same pair of long-handled pruning shears since August, their orange handles visible from the street. That morning, the hook was bare. By Thursday, the Kellermans had taped a handwritten sign to their mailbox, "Tools stolen, reward," and the words spread down Aldermore Lane before noon. By the second week of November, 3 more households had reported missing items: a DeWalt drill set, 2 Amazon packages, a ceramic planter shaped like a rooster. Edgar heard the mailbox cluster conversations from 20 feet away while pulling his own envelopes from the slot. The voices dropped when he approached, but not before he caught his own address mentioned twice. He tucked his electric bill under his arm and walked back to number 14 without stopping, the gravel crunching under his boots like something being slowly ground to powder. Martha Colville, 51, had lived at 9 Aldermore Lane for 11 years and had never once missed a homeowners association vote. She wore her dark hair pinned with a tortoiseshell clip and kept a wreath on her door for every season, currently a tasteful arrangement of dried eucalyptus and burgundy ribbon. She stood in her open doorway that Saturday afternoon and waved people in with both hands, the way a conductor settles an orchestra. Her kitchen smelled of drip coffee and cinnamon, and her smile was the kind that made people stop second-guessing themselves. Edgar watched the cars fill Martha Colville's driveway from his porch swing. He counted 11 vehicles by 4 in the afternoon. He had not been invited. No flyer in his box, no knock at his door, but the meeting was not exactly a secret either. A hand-lettered notice had gone up at the corner of Aldermore and Pine Street 2 days prior. Community safety meeting, Sat 4 p.m., 9 Aldermore. Edgar read it on his morning walk and kept moving. He sat now with his coffee going cold and watched the lights come on inside Martha's front room. He did not sleep that night. At 2 in the morning, Edgar sat at his kitchen table under the single overhead bulb and wrote on a yellow legal pad. Not a letter, not a list of grievances, just a timeline. November 3rd, shears taken. November 9th, drill set. November 12th, packages from Kellerman's porch. November 14th, planter. He tapped the pen against the edge of the table and stared at the dates. Someone in this neighborhood was working a pattern. Every 5 to 7 days, always on a weekday, always before noon. For the next 6 days, Edgar moved his kitchen chair to the upstairs bedroom window, overlooking Aldermore Lane. He brought his legal pad and a thermos of black coffee. He was not looking for drama. He was looking for the same truck, the same footstep, the same pause at a porch that did not belong. What he found instead was quieter and stranger, a pattern in what was missing from the street. Between 7 and 9 each weekday morning, when most residents had left for work, the lane went still, except for one house. Number 9 never fully emptied. On the morning of November 19th, Edgar drew a small circle on his legal pad next to Martha Colville's address, her silver Subaru Outback, the one with the cracked left tail light. he had noticed in her driveway for months, was parked at home on every single morning a theft had been reported. He checked the dates 3 times. He was not a detective. He was a 63-year-old man who had spent 30 years as a logistics coordinator for a freight company, and he knew how to read a delivery schedule. This one had a name on it. She stood at the head of her dining room table and spoke in measured, regretful tones. "I hate to say this," Martha began, setting her coffee mug down with both hands, "but we have to consider that whoever is doing this knows our routines. They know when we leave. They know which porches aren't watched." She let that settle. Sometimes the people we stop noticing, the ones who are always just there, always watching, those are exactly the people we should be paying closer attention to. She did not say Edgar Pruitt's name. She did not have to. 3 people glanced toward the window that faced number 14, and Martha refilled her coffee like a woman with nothing to hide. Edgar had come because he needed to see her face when she spoke. He stood near the kitchen doorway with his arms crossed and watched Martha Colville work the room the way a card dealer works a table. Smooth, deliberate, never showing the hand. When her gaze swept toward the window and 3 heads turned to follow it, Edgar uncrossed his arms. He looked at the floor, then at his own hands, then back at Martha. He pulled the legal pad from his back pocket and pressed his thumb against the corner of it until the paper bent double. The Monday after the meeting, Edgar walked the full length of Aldermore Lane for the first time in 4 years. He moved slowly, hands in his jacket pockets, reading the houses the way a man reads fine print. At number 9, he stopped on the sidewalk and studied the side yard. Behind the neatly trimmed boxwood hedge, half screened by a trellis of dead wisteria, sat a metal storage shed he had never paid attention to before. The padlock on it was new, a Masterlock 3-inch shackle, still bright silver, not yet weathered. The rest of the yard was 10 years old. That evening, Edgar sat on his porch swing until the temperature dropped to 41 degrees. He went inside, picked up his phone, and dialed the Rockdale County non-emergency line. He gave his name. He gave his address. He gave Martha Colville's address. He told the officer about the timeline on his legal pad, the Subaru in the driveway on theft mornings, and the new padlock on an old shed. He did not editorialize. He read the dates the way he used to read freight manifests. Flat, factual, without apology. Then he set the phone on the kitchen table and made himself a sandwich. 2 mornings later, at 8:47, a Rockdale County Sheriff's cruiser rolled to a stop in front of number 9. Edgar watched from his upstairs window. He did not feel triumphant. He felt the particular flatness of a man who has been right about something he wished he were wrong about. The officers knocked. Martha answered in a cream cardigan, her tortoiseshell clip in place, her expression composed and gracious, right up until one of the officers gestured toward the side yard and the shed, and her hand found the doorframe and gripped it. Martha stepped off her porch and onto the lawn ahead of the officers, positioning herself between them and the shed. "That's storage," she said, her voice still carrying its meeting room authority. "Personal items, you'd need a warrant for that." One of the officers held up a folded paper. She looked at it. She looked at the shed. Then she said quietly, almost to herself, "I can explain all of this." The padlock came off at 9:14. The orange handles of the Kellerman's pruning shears were visible from the sidewalk. Edgar came outside and stood at the edge of his property. Doors opened up and down Aldermore Lane. People stepped onto their porches. By 3 that afternoon, the cruiser was gone, and the lane had gone quiet in a different way. Not the quiet of avoidance, but the quiet of people sitting with something uncomfortable. Edgar was on his porch swing with the Conyers Courier when footsteps stopped at his fence. He looked up. A man he recognized as the owner of number 22 stood at the gap with his hands in his jacket pockets. The man did not say he was sorry. He said he had not known Edgar used to work in freight logistics, and that his own father had done the same work for 30 years out of Atlanta. The following Saturday, Edgar pulled his own hedge trimmers from the garage. a pair of Fisker loppers with a cracked handle he had taped years ago and never replaced. He started at the corner of the fence nearest the street and worked toward the gate. The hedge had gone 3 feet past the top of the fence posts. It took him most of the morning. He was not doing it for the neighborhood. He was doing it because the light had been blocked from his front window since July, and he had stopped noticing until now. He filled 2 yard bags and left them at the curb. By the end of the week, the eucalyptus and burgundy ribbon wreath was gone from the door of number 9. The Subaru Outback had not been in the driveway since Tuesday. The lights inside came on each evening at 6 on a timer. Edgar could tell because they clicked on in the same 2 rooms in the same sequence every night, without variation, the way lights do when no one is actually home. On the front step, a folded section of the Conyers Courier from 4 days ago sat in its plastic sleeve, edges curling from the damp. 3 weeks after the shed was opened, Edgar was on his porch at dusk when the woman in the yellow rain slicker, the same one who had crossed to the other sidewalk in October, came up Aldermore Lane from the direction of Pine Street. She walked a small dog on a red leash. When she reached the gap in Edgar's fence, she looked up and raised her free hand in a brief, flat wave. Not warm, not apologetic, the plain acknowledgement of one person to another. Edgar raised his hand in return. The dog sniffed the fence post, and they kept walking. That night, Edgar left the porch light on. He had not done that in 4 years. The bulb had burned out in the fall of 2019, and he had not replaced it because there was no one he was expecting and no reason to advertise his presence. The new bulb threw a pale yellow cone over the swing and the rail and the legal pad he had left there, its pages dense with dates and circles and the small, precise handwriting of a man who had been paying attention all along. The lane was quiet. Edgar picked up the legal pad, tore the top sheet free along its perforated edge, folded it once, and slid it into his shirt pocket. Another hour finally told. This has been Untold Hours.